to unveil our guests, who are eminent geneticists. Let me not cut my teeth there. That assignment is to be handled by Samuel Fatuk. Samuel, thank you.
Dr. Mario, and of course, congratulations once again to you and to all of us right there on the body part. Let's eventually that Professor Olufumelayo Ayoka Adegambo is a septuagenarian who is introduced to octogenarian milestone in a couple of years. One thing that resonates in our profile is the tag first in this and that. Our world revolved around three great institutions in Nigeria, and that's the University of Ibadan. And that's one of the best universities currently. Before I think recently talking about one of the best universities, and then they made it to the list. And it's actually at the University of Ibadan, she back a PhD. And then the University of University links in where she wants to work at Federal University of Agriculture and Development. We transferred the service and had the better part of their retirement, after which we have pronounced our professor emeritus. But owing to our numerous accomplishments, Olufumelayo Ayoka Adebambo is the first female professor of animal breeding, genetics and biotechnology in Nigeria. She successfully developed a PhD in genetic breed in Nigeria within the first 16 years of employment at the Boston University's Institute of Agricultural Research and Training. She transferred the service to FUNAB in October 1993, where she was the first step to develop the first department of animal breeding and genetics in Nigeria. She was the first female dean of the College of Animal Science and livestock production for 16 years. For 16 years, she has served the country, Nigeria, victoriously as a lecturer, research scientist, and been leading the research activities to develop the sport to improve indigenous feed breeds and research to improve the indigenous feeding breeds for Nigeria, which was funded by the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the International Livestock Research Institute, Ethiopia. The breed was accepted all over Nigeria and has been registered as the first improved indigenous animal breed to be registered in Nigeria by the Nigerian Crop Varieties, Livestock and Fisheries Registration Council in 2018. Olufumelayo Ayoka Adebambo, the first PhD graduate of animal breeding and genetics from the University of Ibadan in 1976, became the first female professor of animal breeding and genetics in Nigeria in 1996. The first to introduce animal biotechnology application into university students and curriculum in 1998 for both undergraduate and postgraduate studies. Please make welcome Professor Olufumelayo Ayoka Adebambo. And moving on from that to our second guest right here, the profile of Professor Ikide Imomore. I hope I got that right out, and definitely stand to be corrected as we go on in the program. Dr. Ikide Imomore is Executive Director, California State University Biotechnology Program and Professor of Biological Sciences in the College of Science of San Diego State University. Prior to joining California State University in the United States of America, he was the fourth positions of Brookstone State University, Spelman College, Cornell University, and Georgia Institute of Technology. Professor Imomore is co-founder and CEO of African Biomedical Tech Limited based in Nigeria, and provides molecular healthcare testing services, including paternity DNA testing, cancer screening, and newborn screening, and genomics testing services. Professor Imomore holds a PhD in animal genetics and genomics from Texas A&M University, College Station, performed doctoral training in human disease therapy at the University of Maryland School of Medicine, Baltimore, and holds a PhD from the University of the People, Pasadena, CA. We can go on to the profiles of the professor. You know, the whole of the trivia camp, you can welcome also Professor Ikide Imomore. And right about now, I'd like to hand over to you, Professor Ikide of the program, to take over in the program.
Well, thank you very much, Fatukun. I read the prologue on the topic on the front burner. Away from the hard stuff of politics economy, governance, and the likes. Tonight's edition is the first delving into the world of science. Therefore, Boiling Point Arena is literally a laboratory of sorts tonight. And you can be sure to hear a lot of scientific jargons, compounds, molecules, atoms, cells, genes, the X and Y chromosomes, etc., etc. On the table of discourse is the topic, genetic revelations, understanding the conundrum of paternity disputes in modern families. As scientific as the topic stands, it goes beyond the issue of science, as it is also an emotional matter. There's a lot that goes into the process of confirmation or disputation of paternity of family members, as well as certain dispositions, characters, behaviors, and temperament that run in a given family. Paternity conflicts in Nigerian families are becoming more prevalent, fueled by recent DNA testing that reveals these rather scary statistics, which is 1 in 4 men are not the biological fathers of their children. These conflicts are leading to increased divorce, legal battles, and significant emotional and psychological trauma. Factors contributing to the issue include a potential decline in the sanctity of marriage, economic pressures, social changes, particularly with firstborn children most frequently affected. A 2025 report found that 25% of paternity tests, yes, resulted in a negative match, meaning 1 in 4 men, like we said, were not the biological fathers due to paternity discrepancies. Some experts attribute the issue to morality or fidelity issues, increased social interaction, and influence of social media, and in most cases, financial motives. Others include relationship issues, whereby, in some cases, women not fully ending previous relationships before marriage, or one of them concealing the inability to conceive. As a consequence, the paternity conflicts are leading to a predicted increase in custody battles and inheritance disputes, not losing sight of the emotional and psychological trauma and mental health consequences for all involved that are associated with it. Well, this edition in particular will unravel family secrets as our geneticists delve into the issue from their own perspectives as experts, and also attempt to assess the impact of DNA testing in paternity disputes. Well, both experts, Professor Olufumilayo Adebambo and Professor Ikide Imumori, I hope you correct us, who are internationally acclaimed researchers, will navigate the DNA conundrum, family dynamics, and emotional fallouts, the challenges, the consequences, and the way forward. Here we are tonight as we dig into all of these issues. Welcome one, welcome all. Permit me, therefore, to bring up the keynote speaker, Professor Sakama Temilola, who is sharing this discourse. By the way, we have been in it for these 3 years. I can safely say happy birthday, Kabis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ojolu. Also, thank you very much, Mr. Samuel Fatoku. I welcome everybody to tonight's edition of Boiling Point Arena. I want to congratulate, in particular, the initiator of this program, Dr. Ayoruju. 3 years of sustaining this program is not a mean feat at all. And I also want to thank all those who have been part of the program, who have helped support to ensure its success so far. I appreciate you all. And I hope we'll continue to go from strength to strength. Tonight's topic for this discourse is not just a social issue, it's an emotional issue. It's something that can create a lot of problems in our society if we don't look at very carefully. And I'm happy we have experts in the area who can help us throw some light on this. But let me just give a brief overview, just following up on the synopsis given by Dr. Arojolu earlier on. Now, we know that DNA testing is becoming increasingly popular now, thanks to the modern access to DNA technology. Our question is, this paternity issue, did it just start today? Probably not. Because, before we had this explosion in social media and the accessibility to DNA testing, these issues have been there. But advancement in technology has really exacerbated the issue, and then, social, changes to the social structure has also, affected it quite a bit. Now, like Dr. Arojulu said, Nigeria ranks as one of the top nations where paternity fraud has been reported. And it suggests that about almost 2/3 of firstborn in Nigeria may not necessarily be, child of the father, of the husband. Now, and we also know that in Nigeria in particular, just like in most part of Africa, there's the issue around inheritance, which also at stake. And that's where the cultural issue comes in as well. There's the issue of lineage as well. And there's the social status. And, so it makes this dispute, it can make it very painful. It can make it very destructive as well. Now, there are quite a number of causes that we can highlight as being the reason for this paternity issue. Of course, infidelity is one of the things. There's also the issue of migration and relationship breakdown. Fertility challenges in some couple in a situation where both the man and the woman are aware of this issue, and then because of the patriarchal nature of our system in Africa, most of the blame is put on the female. In which case, the female can go around and then go and do a one night stand with somebody else, and then comes with pregnancy. So there's also, because of insecurity issues, because the woman wants to stay in marriage. It's also part of it as well. Now, there's also one important factor. There have been cases of mix-up by hospital staff in handling newborn babies. It's another part of this thing. And in most cases, the parents are not aware of this. And when the issue comes, most times they don't even think about, this source in particular. Again, what are the social and emotional impact that leads to? One of the main recipients, or the main people that it affects, are the children, where it can give them identity crisis. For example, you can imagine a child, with his or her peers, and the parents know that the child is a bastard, so to say. There's loss of trust, emotional trauma comes with it, and there's social stigma, the major thing in our society here in Africa. On the father, it's a case of psychological. You can imagine a father who has been training a child for, I don't know, quite a number of decades, and then suddenly he finds out now it's not his. You can imagine the distress that causes, the financial burden it comes, and the betrayal. On the mother, it's about public scrutiny. oh, that woman, harlot, she cheated on her husband. The loss of custody, and there are legal consequences as well. And of course, this causes, major issue of family breakdowns, mistrust in relationship, and also generational trauma. And also there's the issue about single parenting that comes with it. And when the family breaks up, then, the parents, are no longer together. It now becomes a single parent that raises the child or the children, as the case may be. And in most cases, children that are brought up by single parents always have issue because, I mean, even two, both parents being there, it's difficult enough. You can imagine if it's now a burden of either the father alone or the mother alone, it becomes another additional burden. There's a ethical and moral dimension to this as well. The question is, how do we balance, sharing the truth, finding out the truth, and pursuing it, and family unity? It's a very delicate that we also need to think about. The other issue, which is a dilemma, is it better to withhold paternity information? There's a role of honesty and stability in families that also needs to be considered as part of the question. In a number of cases, there have been DNA testing without the consent of the other party. Question is privacy concerns. These are also part of the moral dimensions that this issue brings. So essentially, if I were to just wrap up all of this, we know paternity challenges are no longer rare. They are commonplace now, based on statistics. And they touch on legal, emotional, and ethical dimensions as well. As families evolve, so must our laws and social support to protect them as well. And there needs to be that balance between sharing the truth, the right of the individuals, the wife, the husband, and especially the children as well. That will be caught in the middle in most of the cases. The well-being of children is a major thing that must be considered when we're looking at all of this. So again, with all these little points, I'm sure that our discussants will be able to give us much deeper perspectives from their points of expertise to guide us on this very, very difficult situation, this conundrum about paternity dispute. On that note, I'd like to hand over to our anchors, Dr. Ojolu and Mr. Fatokun, to lead us through this session for tonight. Again, thank you very much, and let's have a nice and productive session today.
Thank you very much for that preamble, Kabiyesi. Well, we go straight to the firing line. That's what we call it, on boiling point. And I do hope the emeritus professor Olufunmilayo Adetambo will be the first to take on the shots. Good evening, Mama Prof. How are you today?
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Thank you.
Very fine. Very fine, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have brought this topic, which is a complex issue right now. In fact, it's all over the world, not only in Nigeria. Because people in Nigeria, we don't know the extent to which we have bastardized relationship. For example,
okay. Let me, Mommy, let me
yes.
set the tone and then you can fly. I know that
Okay.
you are up to the task.
Okay.
But let's go back to creation. Are you with me now?
Yes.
Let's go back to creation. God created, first of all, the man.
And the woman.
He pronounced the man to come to existence. And later, he was the one who discovered that man would not be complete. He will never be complete without a woman. And brought somebody with all the genetical makeup of the man. That person is a woman. Somebody had told me first that the people you have brought, they are animal genetics. And But I told the person, I said, in the study of biology, biology recognizes plants and animals.
Animals,
And
yes, and human beings.
yes, with that perspective, can you just bring up this issue of genetics, about creation, about makeup of, the person called man? Then you can also bring out your initial perspective, which you were already on course. Thank you, man.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ayo. Like you started from creation. I said God is not so stupid as to meddle with our genetic makeup. He has standardized genetic makeup of every human beings and animals. And you know that if anybody has lived on this planet, the bone can tell us about the DNA, about the genetic makeup. The hair, even the nail can give us the genetic makeup because it's already programmed by our God. And like I said, 99% of us, of all human beings, we have the same makeup. But there's 1% area that we found out that 1% created the difference between us. So once you are able to locate that 1%, you are able to tell us whether this person is from this fellow, what we call the coding system, whether this fellow is a criminal, whether this fellow, like I was talking about Lord Jefferson, was the president of America, and he locked up a lady for years, and that lady was giving him children. It was these children that now cried out that we belong to the inheritance of America. And so we want the bones of Lord Jefferson to be exhumed and then compare the DNA with ours to know that we belong to this man. And there was a case of one lady that was killed by the husband and thrown into the ocean. Thank God the ocean brought back that carcass of the woman. By the time they analyzed the DNA, they were able to find out that it was the husband that killed her. So there are so many cases like that. We in Nigeria, we are not very familiar with all this. In 1982, I was in the United Kingdom, and I went to the library. I saw one book. Then I went to the lecturer that wrote the book. I said, this thing, which is called immune genes and so on, I'm interested. Please, can you help me with it? Thank God I was able to get Commonwealth Fellowship 1986 to come and to study the immune genes. The immune genes are the ones that we say were created by God to control our disease system. So that if you belong to another person and that person has immune genes that are different from yours, if you are now trying to transfer or to transplant, you know that it's going to create problem because the immune genes are genetically inherited. So all about our inheritance are already coded by God right from the beginning. Everything has been coded. So like we said, we have the DNA, don't let me give the jargon. The DNA in every individual, you can easily extract it and then compare them with parental issues. And even from children, you can get the DNA of the parents from their children. Because when you look at the coding system, that's the combined DNA information system, you'll be able to tell whether these children belong to this man or belong to this woman. So it's something that is common in the USA, in the European Union, especially for criminal tendencies. So you can't escape if you have a criminal tendency, because the moment you enter Europe or you enter America, they will take your fingerprint. So the fingerprint is already loaded in the database. So if you do anything contrary in that country, they're going to locate you. You can't escape because they have their own database. The database is what we are lacking in Nigeria. We have not really funded genetic research in Nigeria before we can say, okay, we need the database. But other countries, if you cannot escape criminal tendency, because you just go to the database, get your fingerprint, and be able to locate wherever that fellow is. God will help us in Nigeria. It's unfortunate that we are still so much backward. Somebody was saying, Mr. Adebambo is an animal geneticist. It was during my tenure as the president of Genetics Society that I had to go to UCH and invite the human geneticists. Please, we are supposed to be part of it. In that time, there were 2 commissioners, one for agri, one for communication, I think. They didn't know anything about this genetic makeup. The one for communication had her children. All of them are dead because she did not determine the sickle cell component. So all the children were dead. The commissioner for agri, when I talked to him, he said, so I'm lucky that all my children, instead of my wife is AS, I am AS, but thank God that all my children are AA. So, and because in every dual inheritance, you have 4 different combinations: ratio 1 dominant, ratio 1 recessive, and the in between, 50% in between. So you can easily determine whatever is happening in a family. So the man was so happy that, we never knew about this, whereas the other woman didn't know. He was an AS, the husband was AS, all the children inherited SS. So they didn't know, they didn't do all these tests before marriage. It's very, very important for us in Nigeria to begin to look at our DNA, our genetic inheritance, right from the beginning, because it has been coded by our God. And when somebody said, I want to be a woman, somebody has coded for your, something has coded for your hormone system. So you cannot change it. It's not possible for you to change it. You want to be a woman as a man. There's no hormonal system in you. You can't get estrogen. So those are the things that people don't understand. You want to be transgender. You want to do this, you want to do that. But they don't know that everything about your cell has been coded. Every cell in your body has been coded by God. The DNA system. And that is the thing that even code for our protein system. So any protein you have in your body has been coded for by God right from the beginning. So there's no way you can change it. Like I said, some people can eat a whole bowl of vegetable and nothing happens to them. Whereas somebody will eat just a little and be running stool. So because the way we are coded, we are different from each other. So we all Nigeria needs to have a database, the human database, apart from in our university, we are trying to get the animal database. But the human database is what is very important to us right now in Nigeria. You can see there was a lady that said he was sick because even diseases are inherited. And right now in the US, we have what we call personalized what's it again? Personalized I can't remember again, sorry. Personalized
we can spare you that.
Personalized oh no. Okay, that your system can be personalized to the type of drug that you can use. Personalized drug system. So there are certain drugs you can use that some people cannot use. And it's always in ratio 1:4. 1 for the dominant side, 1 for the recessive side, and 2 for the hybrids in between. So they are now trying to personalize the drug system to people. Because we know not all of us. I was telling somebody this night that, Mama, can you are having malaria, can you use, I don't use malaria drug. If I use it, I will be dizzy for 3 days. I won't see anything. And whereas some people will take the malaria drug and they're okay. So personalized this personalized drug system
I can
is
see
already
that Professor
is already
Ihide
operating.
wants to just prompt you
It's
on that.
operating in some
Can
other
you
countries.
unmute Professor Ihide? Yes.
So and then there was a lady that said, I think the child was sick and went to the hospital. They needed blood transfusion. They now found that the blood of the man is not compatible with that of the son. It was then this lady now said, let me check up. So if my father cannot donate blood to my son, to my brother, let me check we sisters, even if we are compatible with our father. It was then they now found out that the three of them are not compatible with their father. And there was a lady also, I think I sent it to you, that said all the three children that she had belonged to another man, and still having an affair with that man without the husband knowing. So it's unfortunate people don't know that we can easily find out now if we have a database, Nigerian database, which is genetically inclined. Then we can monitor criminality, we can monitor genetic inheritances, we can monitor drug use, and so on and so forth. So many things can be monitored if we have a database. It's that database that is lacking.
Thank you very much, Prof. Hello, Prof.
And Prof
Thank you
was
very much.
telling us about the baby mix-up in hospital. At times
let's
that also
come over
happens
to Professor
in
Ihide.
hospitals.
Are you through with your line of thought, ma'am?
I'm just talking about baby mix-up in hospitals. I was in a lecture with one lady now said, excuse me, and this and that. I said, I should be on my word in it, because some people will bribe. They needed a male child. They will not bribe the nurse. They will not give another person's child to them. Or they needed a female child. So I said, I should be on my word, because somebody has bribed the nurses to give them another person's child. And when that child gets into your house, Yorubas will say, what is it again? Ọmọ àlè ibẹ̀ ni ò tí dàgbà. Because the behavior will be different from that of others. So you now know that this one belongs to somewhere else. So with all those ones, I think we are still far behind. We are too far behind in animal genetics, in human genetics in Nigeria. We are not really doing anything. In some other countries, they have the database in UK, in Europe, and there's no way a criminal can escape. And there's no way you can traffic another person's child, because you will easily see that this one does not belong to you. So you cannot take another person's child outside of Nigeria, because we don't know that there's certain principles or information that will help us to determine inheritance among couples, among children, and so on and so forth.
Indeed, we are coming over to the issue of the inheritance. Thank you very much, Professor Mamadi Bambo. Let's come over to Professor Ihide. Please help me unmute Professor Ihide.
No, I'm unmuted. I'm unmuted. Thank you very much.
Very good.
I hope you guys can hear me. Yes?
Oh, okay, I can hear you. You're fine.
Okay.
I want you to talk about this DNA conundrum. Tell us the relationship between DNA.
Let me quickly.
Okay, let me let you loose.
Let me quickly. So there are two things I want to quickly say to kind of set the stage. The first one is the data that you provided about 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 fathers may not be the biological fathers of, especially their first children. I think that statistic needs to be corrected just a little bit. So in statistics, there's something we call bias. Okay, we can have bias in data. So that data is partly true because it comes out of those who actually did the test. So it's not a population-based sample. It's a proportion of those who have already selected themselves to do the test, meaning that 30% paternal mismatch is not from the overall population. It's from those who actually chose to do the test, meaning that that population is already skewed towards those who have reason to doubt the paternity of their children. And going back to what Professor Adebambo had said earlier, there is a major lack of research in this area. In fact, when I was invited to be part of this show, this program, I actually went to do a little literature review research myself. I went to delve into the literature and see what have we done, what has been done, what has been published. I'm very shocked to say that I couldn't find anything published on this, meaning that there has never been any proper population-based genetic analysis in Nigeria, in humans. It was so shocking to me. So that data that is being reported in the press is not from any scientific survey. It's not from any rigorous scientific research. It is from labs that handle paternity testing, paternity DNA testing. So it's a very skewed sample. The way to understand this will be to do a broad population-based survey, which hasn't been done yet. So I want to correct that. It's not really true that 1 in 4 children are not the biological children of their presumed fathers. But we really don't know. The real answer is we don't know. We don't know for sure. There are reasons to believe that it may be higher than we think, or maybe it's lower than we think. Until that research is actually done, we cannot say definitively. So that's number one. Mama was alluding to the impact of genetic testing in medical applications. We are entering into a world in the US and in many other advanced countries where many therapies can now be personalized. So you're a patient, maybe for cancer treatment, rheumatoid arthritis treatment, maybe some kind of neurological treatment like Parkinson's disease or paranoid schizophrenia or multiple sclerosis. There are a number of things out there for which they now have very, very good testing. What that means is they will take your DNA and they will analyze your DNA to get your profile. And that profile, which is personal to you, will now be used as a basis to find a very particular therapy that is tailored to that particular profile. It's still pretty expensive and still pretty high-end, but it exists now. It's out there. And the baby snatching thing that Mama talked about is real. As a matter of fact, I don't know about Nigeria, but I live in the US. I've lived in the US for a very long time. My kids were born here. I have 2 daughters who were born here in the US. When a child is born in the hospital in the US, usually babies are taken from their mothers within a few hours of birth and taken to the nursery before the mother and the baby will be discharged, usually the next day. If you have a baby without any complication, everything's just normal, usually you spend 1 night in the hospital and you go home. Occasionally, maybe 2 nights, but most people is 1 night. And so between the time the baby is actually born and the time the mother and baby are discharged, there is a window of time when the baby is in the nursery. It's like a big place where they have, all these beds, lined up side by side where they put all the babies. So what they do is before the baby leaves the mother's maternity room, they tag the baby and the mother with the same tag on their wrist. And the reason they do that is exactly what Professor Adebambo said. Babies can be switched in the nursery. Babies can be switched either mistakenly or intentionally. If you've ever seen newborn babies, 10 of them in front of you, it can be a little hard to tell them apart. It's not very easy to tell newborns apart who were just born within a few hours. They all kind of sort of look alike. So they do that tagging before they take the baby out of that maternity room and take to the nursery. So the tag, we have the mother's name, the baby's name, and some details. And then before you do anything to the baby, you have to check the tag. And before you leave the hospital, the nurses will check your tag and check the tag of the baby, make sure they match. Before you take somebody else's baby home and another person take your baby home. It's become standard practice to do that. I think a long time ago, it wasn't always like that. And they had these issues of babies getting switched. Which brings me to another issue that relates to paternity exclusion rate in Nigeria. I don't know how they do this in Nigeria, but when you include both the one that is mistake and the one that they may have bribed the nurses because you want a male child or a female child or whatever, I wonder, when we see these paternity exclusion issues we see, could it possibly be due to baby switching at birth, either by mistake or intentionally? It's possible, right? It's very possible that that could happen. And, you know, years and years and years later, now that the technology is very mature, people want to do immigration, because if you want to immigrate nowadays, you have to do DNA testing. You know, you win visa lottery, or you know, a husband has been abroad for years, now want the family to join them. The embassy would usually, these days, they will ask you to do DNA test. I mean, they want to be sure that the people you are bringing with you are biologically related to you. I'm going to address something else on how this can be handled later on in this program. But DNA testing now allows all of these issues that were hidden for a very, very long time can now be easily revealed. Either because people specifically want to know, or they were doing something else and by mistake, the truth comes out. I've heard of stories where, you know, somebody left Nigeria or they won visa lottery, they're in America for years, then it's now time to file the papers for their family to come. That's when the man finds out the kids are not his kids, or 1 out of 3, or 1 out of 4, or 2 out of 4, whatever it is, are not his own children. Up until that time, nobody had any clue. But now the embassy says you have to do paternity DNA test before you can come. And I have a relative. Well, thank goodness the young woman is actually his daughter. So he had been abroad for years and wanted to bring the young girl to come and live with them, you know, join them abroad. And they had to do paternity DNA test. Well, it's his daughter, but the test also proved that, and he had no problem. But if the test came back negative, then we have a problem. The embassy will say, sorry, this person can't come. This person is not related to you. And so it can be very heartbreaking, can be very devastating. I mean, this thing can be really, really major disruption to families, to lives. And so in many places, companies that do this test actually have some things in place to try to handle the fallout. This is not a very well developed thing in Nigeria, but I think it's something that people need to pay attention to. In other words, if you are in a situation where you want to do a paternity DNA test, a few other things needs to be taken care of first, because you cannot be sure how this is going to affect you. You may think you know, but you don't. Because once those results are released, it can create the kind of upheaval that some families may not survive. And I will wrap up with an example. We have a company in Nigeria. I'm part of a a business in there that actually provides paternity DNA testing. So last year, a customer approached us and wanted his children tested. We don't ask people why they want to do it. We provide a service. And so the company made the arrangement, sent the collection kit to this person is in Port Harcourt. He's an engineer with Shell. So send the kit to Port Harcourt. They collected the buccal samples from inside your inner cheeks, sent the samples, and they were sent to the lab for lab testing. And the results came back. The results were heartbreaking because these kids were like in junior secondary school at this point. Of the 3 kids that were tested, 2 of them were not his kids. Only one was his biological child. The other 2 were not. This man was completely unraveled. I mean, he was completely broken. In fact, he insisted that we do the test again. I actually had to call him to explain to him that, sir, this is not how this works. We can repeat this test 100 times. The results are not going to change. He said, no, he wanted the test to be repeated. I tried to explain to him that it won't change the results. He said, no, he wants the test to be repeated. He wanted to pay again. In fact, he paid again. I mean, what do you do? I could understand where he was coming from, but because I think he assumed that these kids were his. He's been taking care of these children for years. In fact, they were in expensive private schools, as a matter of fact. And now maybe he was suspecting his wife. I don't know the backstory. Like I said, we don't get involved in all of that. But when the results came back, it was completely devastating. And the second case that I will round up with is a customer that contacted us from Jos. His brother passed away. He wanted to adopt his 2 nieces. So he had 2 young girls who were his brother's daughters. So his brother had passed away, and there is a particular test called an avuncular test where it's not a direct paternity, it's uncle, like to see if somebody is related to you and you are that person's uncle. The test can be done to determine that as well, because if you are full SIB, like me and my brother, we have 50% of our DNA in common. If your cousins is 25%, uncle and niece is also 25%. So there's a way to use this test to determine if there's a biological relationship between any 2 people. And so we shipped the collection kits to Jos. The samples were collected. They went to the lab. The testing was done. And it came back. And the 2 girls are not related to him. Now, let me quickly say something here so that people don't get confused. If these girls are not related to him, the unspoken question is, are those girls his brother's kids? So that's the first thing that comes to mind. Are those girls his brother's kids? The test says no, they are not his brother's kids because they are not related to him. But there's a bigger problem here. And when a friend of mine pointed it out, I was blown away. And the bigger problem, I hope you guys are ready for this, is he related to his late brother? Because that's another issue. Is he related to his late brother? Maybe the reason that the girls are not related to him is because he and his brother are not actually brothers. We don't know that. His brother has passed away. So maybe the girls are truly his brother's daughters. The problem is that he and his so-called brother are not related. We don't know. Our test didn't test for that. So you can see how this thing can just grow legs into different directions. Let me stop there.
Okay, thank you very much. Indeed, it's growing legs. And Professor Imumure, you blew my mind. But let me come over to Emeritus Professor The Bible talks about children being God's heritage. Now we are saying that, like Professor Ihide is saying, that it's possible you are living all your life with a stranger, stranger entirely. Is this a justification for men now to say, I must begin to use my head? I want to unravel some secrets. That's one. Two, if somebody has been living with me, granted, assuming the person is a stranger that I call my son or my daughter, and it's like 25 years old, am I supposed to expect some genetical disputation, some genetical content that we don't find in our family line? Explain how all of this is. Thank you.
Like Prof said, in a family, you are 50% related to your father and your mother. And then you are 25% related to your grandparents. And so even all the cousins in that family line will be related by 25%. So there's no way you can say, no, they are deceiving you, or so, and so on and so forth. Parents are related to their offspring by 50%. 50% from the father's side, 50% from the mother's side. And then when you now go to cousins, they should be 25% related to each other. And to grandchildren as well, they should be 25% related to their grandparents. So that's what we usually look for. So you cannot say, oh, it's a mistake. No. We know what we look for. We know what we calculate. We know how we search for that percentage of inheritance. And then we have genetic markers that we use to determine this. So if you are using the markers and it's saying, no, there's nothing you can do about it, because we have genetic markers already documented that we look for. So if you are really a geneticist or a breeder or a biotechnologist, you must know that ratio, that percentage inheritance between you and your children, between your husband and your children, between children and children. Like I said, the children of Lord Jefferson, you know, when he died a long time ago, the children said the bone should be exhumed. They want to tell the world that they belong to that man. And they found out that, oh yes, they now trace the history that their mother was kept in an underground cell and was having children for Lord Jefferson. So they belong to him, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. And like I said, if once you are able to get your, apart from the Booker collection, once you can get your hair, get your nail, get your bones, apart from your blood, we can extract the DNA from any of those ones. Apart from collecting, because they say non-invasive one is collecting from the mouth, not from the saliva, from the buccal cavity. But if you are able to get from any formerly existing bone on this planet Earth, you will get the relationship with all your offspring, the relationship with your cousins, with your nieces and nephews, and so on. Genetics has helped us to do all those ones. So apart from looking at the fellow and saying, oh, it belongs, it does not belong, you can collect anything, any part of your body, and then analyze it. We'll get all the results out. Within days, it should be out. So you can't bamboozle anybody. Once it's a geneticist or biotechnology, you can't bamboozle us. We know the ratio of inheritance between parents and offspring, between offspring and offspring, between nieces and uncles and aunties. We know the relationship. So you can't, there's no way you can bamboozle God again, except you go to a quack. But if it's a real geneticist, we know what we do. We know what we search for. We know the marker that we have to look for to be able to run the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Adibambo. And of course, the big question, Professor Ikide. And that's quite an insightful one right there. Looking at the topic that we're discussing today, genetic revelation, unraveling the conundrum of paternity disputes in modern families. You know, I tried doing like a research concerning this particular topic. There's this term that came my way that I called female. And I wanted to tell you straight more, right? I'll come to Professor Ikide on this one. You know, from what I read, this is a case of the term genetic markers that don't mark your appearance. So, for example, this can lead to significance of infidelity, unpaternity is actually from the side of the family, not accounted for. It's not the second DNA. Inherited from maybe the father, kind of. You know, that's on the one hand. Then on the other hand, for example, the recipient of a particular, you know, organ. Now, the donor that donated that particular organ comes from DNA. Is it possible that the recipient also gets affected? The DNA of the recipient gets affected, and then we have cases of infidelity. Just look at all of the practical challenges we're having in the news. And we have some light being shared on this aspect. And Professor Ikide is coming up.
Can we have Prof. unmuted? Technical, can we have Professor Imumore unmuted? He's still unmuted. Okay, you are good to go now.
I wasn't sure if somebody was asking a question or not, but he was barely audible. But there are two things that I quickly want to point out. There's something called chimerism. chimerism. So chimerism is a relatively rare occurrence in genetics.
Chimera.
So basically what happens in a chimera is you have two types of cells in the same individual. And so when that happens, one population of cells may have a separate genetic identity from the other population of cells. So essentially the person is a mixture. Chimera comes from a Greek word of some mythical creature that is a combination of two types of creatures. That's how it was named. And so if you do genetic testing, like paternity DNA testing, for instance, and you happen to randomly pick the population of cells that is different from the one belonging to the biological father, the result will come back negative. Now, there are additional ways in which this can be addressed, but just that one test will not be sufficient. And it can create problems where you're like, oh, this person is not related to the alleged father, but the person is. And you may say, well, how does chimerism happen? There are several mechanisms how chimerism happens, but one of the easiest ways in which it happens is sometimes during embryonic development, you can have certain mutations that can occur very, very, very early in the developmental process. Like we're talking during the stage of a blastocyst, where you have 4 cells, 8 cells, 16, 32, 64, and so on. That's how the fertilized egg divides. At those early stages, certain mutations can happen and end up in a separate lineage of cells. And so in the fully developed embryo that becomes a fetus, that becomes a baby, you have 2 populations of cells. And that mutation will differentiate that second population of cells from the original I'm calling the original the one that is the exact copy from the father, the actual biological father. Then this other mutated line that ends up in this second population of cells will be different from that original. And it will coexist. That's why it's called a chimera. It will coexist in that same individual like that. And so that can create a false negative in this test. But these are very, very rare things. What we are describing now is really rare. Maybe one in a few 100,000 births. This is not a very common thing at all. And then finally, I think this sort of issue really gets us to a very important concept we must not avoid in this conversation.
Okay.
What is parenthood? What is fatherhood? What is motherhood? People adopt children. In the eyes of the law and in the eyes of society, if you adopt a child, that child is your child, biology or not, right? So let's keep this in mind. If you adopt a child, the child can be an infant when you adopt that child, or they can be a little more grown. But once the adoption process is complete, in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of everything that is normal, that child is your child in every sense. In fact, that child is your child as if you had that child biologically. I think the issue here is the issue of deception. It's not the relationship that is, I think the problem, right? It's the deception, whether intentionally or not. Because think of it, if a child was born into your household, let's assume that the child is not actually yours biologically, but that child was born into your household. Maybe your wife got pregnant by somebody else, or somehow you even knew. But from birth until that child becomes an adult, the relationship that that child will have with this person is that of a parent, okay? Parenthood clearly is more than biology. Everybody can be a biological father, but not everybody can be a parent. That's why we all know that people can use their hands to kill their own child. We see it happen. Somebody has a child, they go and throw it in the toilet, or they go and throw it in the dustbin. It happens here too. It also happens in Nigeria. I'm talking biological, not a stranger. This person gave birth and then threw the child away. Sometimes they rescue the children, sometimes the child is dead. So clearly, biology is good, but there can be bigger issues than biology. And I think that's something that we kind of have to incorporate into this conversation. Now, I understand the heartbreak. I understand the impact. You thought this person was your biological child. And then when the child is 17 or 21, in fact, the highest we saw in our company for paternity DNA test is a man who is 60. The man who was doing the test is 60. His father is 80-something. We did the test, and the man is not the guy's father from Ibadan. It was heartbreaking. But this man is 60. Who else is his father? He has had a relationship with this Baba for his whole 60 years of his life. So the Baba is his father, okay? Forget about biology, because at this point, biology is useless. It's irrelevant. He doesn't know any other father. This is the only father he knows. In fact, at this point, I'm not, because his mother has passed away. So you can't go and ask his mother, who got you pregnant? The guy is now 60 years old. His father is like 85 or 87. So these are very difficult matters to deal with. But I think there are all these other issues beyond biology. It's difficult to navigate. It's difficult to deal with. But I will hope that people also remember that I'm not this person's biological father, but the child is in your house. He's 17 years old. You have raised this child from birth. This child doesn't have any other father. He doesn't know any other father. What do? What, you just send the kid away? it will affect you too, because you have already created a bond, and that bond transcends biology.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think it's getting really very interesting. In a bit, I'll be coming over to Professor Adebambo to also add to, or corroborate, or what perspectives you have brought to it. But I would be saying that this particular discourse is one that, as they say in Nigeria, we are going to allow people to chook mouth. We are going to allow a lot of questions during the flow interactions. And if you have messages, please keep them coming. Let me come over to the Professor Emerita. When Moses was born, Moses was not an Egyptian, we all know. But from birth, he grew up in the palace. Is it not possible that the way Moses was, the people in the palace who were taking care of him, I'm sure they took him for a prince or a potential pharaoh? I don't know. Would there likely be genetical variations, differences, by which Moses would be behaving true to type like an Egyptian until he discovered himself? He was the one who discovered himself. I'm not sure they told him. Now, assuming I have or let me say somebody, let me not say me, has a child who has been a stranger, even though Professor Mumuri want to say is your child, it cannot be a stranger because he has stayed with you for long. Would there be, very remarkable change? For example, if somebody is an Arab and is taken to a UK setting, we know the way the Arabs are. There are differences in temperament, in characters, in behaviors, in many things, in height. Even maybe if you want to talk about like the Chinese or Japanese. How are we sure? Or no, I will be asking, would there be that kind of very sharp, if somebody, we have a lot of Chinese in Nigeria, and they are fondling with a lot of our ladies. It has happened, reported in the papers. When they now have a child, that child, according to your explanation, will be 50% Chinese and 50% Nigerian. Now, they have the height makeup with us. What are we likely to have in terms of differences? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Like the example of Moses, he was taken from the river. He got to a stage, he now realized that, no, I'm not with these people. I'm an Israelite. So that was when he started behaving funny in the palace. Because like Yoruba would say, Bílé kan bá ń tòrò, ọmọ àlebẹ̀ ni ò tí dàgbà. Tó bá ti dàgbà is going to show a different character. You will know that this one does not belong here. He will show you his character, where he belongs. So it's normal. It's normal for that situation to arise. Even when you say, after all, I've been raising him for the past 25 years, and he's my child, and so on, by the time he begins to display that negative character, you now wonder, is this child really mine? It is that time that took some people to DNA test. So please let me check if this man is really mine. And then the truth will now come out. We have been talking about this DNA for paternity, and so we have not talked about the DNA for diseases, because at times you now say you think this child is yours, and then the child might first sick, you wanted to transfuse their blood. You now say, no, you are incompatible. Whatever it is, you are not compatible with this child because it does not belong to you. And not only in certain cases, you might be compatible, but because of the immune genes, you find that there's immunosuppressants in the body, in the system. So there are so many things acting around that place. You will say, okay, let me take it. The last one that I read on this paper, it was the pastor that wanted to take custody of his own child. Whereas the man thought these children are mine. So the pastor now said, we can both take custody together. If you don't want it that way, I will go to court and take my children. So it could be as bad as that. So there's nothing anybody can do, even if you say, okay, you've been raising them and so on and so forth. It can be highly devastating when you realize that the children that you thought are yours, you've been raising them, you've been nurturing them and so on and so forth, sending them to school, paying school fees, and you now realize that no, they don't belong to me. Maybe through diseases, because we also inherit diseases. There are some codes that make us to inherit certain diseases. And then you now trace it back to your family line. Oh, this type of disease killed my great-grandfather. It killed my grandfather. It killed my sister. So this is what is happening. So those ones, we have not even looked at those ones, because there was a lady that traveled from Nigeria to UK to donate organ for the son. Eventually, the son died, but the woman, the money that was donated for the woman to go to UK, she used now to build the house for herself because of the incompatibility. Even when you think this child is mine, there's still some level of incompatibility in certain areas of your life, in the certain area of the genetic code, which might just surface anytime, any day, which you don't expect. And that's why we are even saying now, before you get married, get your DNA tested so that you don't make the mistake of transferring diseases to your children. You don't make the mistake, like I said about the AS people. AS, oh, they can marry. They cannot marry because SS can jump out of AS. And all the children might be SS. You think, oh, AS, they might be AA, they might be AS, and all of them can be SS. So there's nothing you can do about it because you are not the one combining it. The combination happens right inside the uterus. Immediately, the conception takes place. So there's no way you can say, oh, let me rearrange it. So maybe apart from all these paternity and so on, we have to look at genetic combination in marriages and so on and so forth as well. Thank you so much. Bless you.
Thank you very much, Professor Adibambo. Thank you so much. And also a big thanks to Professor Akide. Now, I'll come to Professor Akide on this particular one. There's a question coming from one of our people. If we have so much, challenges, so much unraveling to do around paternity disputes and families, and all of that, why is it that DNA testing is not so affordable? Why is it that expensive? If there is a lot of problems, surrounding a particular, situation, and there should be affordability concerning that. I want to get a response to this, please.
The question again.
All right, that's why.
Question again.
This particular challenge, paternity disputes, paternity challenges, and all of the unravelings we have to do. Why is DNA testing, DNA tests that are conducted, why are they not affordable? Why are they all that expensive? Can we have, and how can we solve this particular challenge? We have a whole lot of DNA cases down, and then there are some people that cannot afford it. At the end of the day, they go for disputes instead of going for DNA tests, and then they don't get to resolve this particular challenge. how do we respond to this? Professor, I think you can have it first.
Dr. Arowojo, can you repeat the question? Because he was barely audible.
Ah,
All right. Can you hear me better now, please?
Not really. Is it your microphone or is this something technical? I can't. You're barely audible. But if you can just repeat the highlight of the question, I heard something about how can people afford the test. It's very expensive. I kind of got
it's
the
actually
gist.
talking about, it's actually talking about, you spoke so brilliantly with Mama Prof also about the need for DNA testing, paternity issue or no paternity issue, in terms of even to know the genetic liabilities running in the bloodline. Is now raising concern over the high cost of some of these
Okay.
DNA tests.
Okay.
How much does it even, can a poor man afford DNA test, judging by Nigeria's economy?
So Mama pointed something out that I want to quickly elaborate on. DNA testing or genetic testing can be as routine as determining sickle cell status. It can start from that as a lowest level all the way to very complicated and sophisticated genome sequencing for personalized DNA, all the really high-end things that even in advanced country, most people also can't afford because the technology is just really very advanced. Now, the one we can talk about is the testing for AS/SS. That one, the technology is pretty solid at this point. And for adults, there are ways to know your genotype. If you go to any basic or standard medical lab in Nigeria as an adult, there is a test they can do. They can tell you whether you are AS or SS. For example, I am AS. I knew my AS status when I was still in university more than 35 years ago. That's when I knew. And the testing was done in a medical lab test not far from our house in Benin. So that's easy. The one that's complicated is when you have a baby. Okay? Okay, so, okay, let me back up a little. By the time you have the baby, it's already kind of late, right? So at the very minimum, people should know their status. The woman I was originally going to marry was AS. We both agreed we were not going to move forward with it because I didn't want to deal with sickle cell, sickle babies. It was a difficult decision, but I figured at least the way we thought about it was prevention was better than cure. There was a 1 in 4 chance we could have a baby who is a sickler. My current wife is AA. I'm AS. So the chance of getting an SS baby is 0. Okay? That's from my own personal experience. Now, if people want to get married, they can check their status and they can know whether they are AS and that test is not expensive. It's not. It's probably less than 2,000, 3,000 naira, even right now in Nigeria. It's not an expensive test. The one that is the real problem is to address it going forward, you need to test newborns. It's called newborn screening. In the US and in many advanced countries, newborn screening is mandated by law, by statute. And most parents don't even know when it happens. Because when a baby is born in the US, all 50 states and Washington, D.C., they will take a blood sample from the heel, from the foot of the baby, within 6 hours of birth. They will take it to a government lab. My kids were born in Atlanta, in Georgia. So it goes to the government lab. Usually, the way they set it up in the US, every state has one lab, one major government lab that does all of this newborn testing thing. So, and it's by law. So there's no way around it. If you are born in that state, you will be screened as a baby. Now, I'll come back to how do you pay for it. I'll leave that in a moment. And so every hospital, every clinic, everywhere babies are born, they know that this must be done. So they take that sample and it's sent to that lab. And this is a time where no news is good news. So when they screen your baby and nothing is abnormal, it's not only sickle cell they test for, they test for a bunch of stuff. If you don't hear anything from them, that's actually good news. No news is good news. If the screening reveal anything abnormal, whether it's sickle cell, whether it's galactosemia, whether it's cystic fibrosis, there's all kinds of stuff they test for. If anything is abnormal, you will hear back from them. They will get in touch with you and say, Mr., Mrs., something happened with the screening of your baby. We now need to do a confirmatory test because they do screening. Screening is different from a confirmatory test. So they will now follow up and confirm. When they now confirm, then the issue of, because sometimes these conditions are treatable. They may not be cured, but they can be treatable. And the earlier you start treating them, the better it is for that person growing up. For example, sickle cell disease, it can be treatable, it can be managed. Now, the issue with this in Nigeria is that babies are not screened at birth. There is no official standard screening in Nigeria right now, as of today. A few people may do this because of their family history, but that's just for them. What needs to happen is that it needs to be done by statute. The same way that immunization is done for every baby at birth. Ideally, that's how it should be done. Every baby born will be screened. Nigeria has the highest burden of sickle cell disease in the world. Approximately 150,000 babies every year are born with sickle cell disease in Nigeria. Because we are the largest Black population in the world, and this mutation is endemic in sub-Saharan Africa. We have the largest population of Blacks, therefore, we contribute the largest proportion of people with sickle cell disease, SS, in the entire world. So you would think that our government, the burden of this disease, look, if you know any family with a sickle cell disease child, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is a very difficult thing to deal with. Crisis after crisis after crisis. Some families, we have two of them. One is in the hospital. The other one, as long as the first one leaves, the second one goes in. When the second one comes back, the first one goes in. It's exhausting, okay? And in many cases, their life expectancy is questionable. Many die before they are in their teens. Actually, 1 in 5 babies with sickle cell disease die before the age of 5. So the burden of this is huge. And so going forward, here is the suggestion. People who have babies, at the beginning of this program, they mentioned that I'm involved with a company called Africa Biomedical Test. One of the things we are doing in Nigeria and pushing right now is to partner with hospitals so that as soon as babies are born, they can be screened. Now, the screening will not cure the baby of sickle cell if they happen to be SS. But the reason why you do the screening at birth is because, remember that test I said that adults can do to tell their status? That test doesn't work in babies because we are born with fetal hemoglobin, and fetal hemoglobin still binds oxygen better than adult hemoglobin. So a newborn baby with SS, it's not written on the forehead. You will not be able to tell. The baby will look normal, everything is normal until around the age of 1, 2, 3, then the symptoms begin to manifest. By then, a lot of damage have already started happening. But if you knew from birth, within, say, 2 days, 1 week, maybe a month of birth, that this child is SS, doctors know the kind of things they can start doing, applying some treatment, some therapy, some things to mitigate that damage. So that by the time they are growing up, things are a little better for them. When you are born with SS, it's fixed. You cannot change the SS. It's, according to mine, it's already baked. It's already in the genetic code, right? You're going to grow up on that with that condition. But if we know early, 2 things happen. 1, you can start treatment early. 2, at least you prepare yourself. You now know you have an SS child. You have to tighten your belt and start figuring out how to move forward. And then that child also now know because the future of that whole family is now riding on that whole genetic lineage, right? I told you that I'm SS, I'm AS. It turned out that my father had 7 children before me. 7. It was from my father's first wife. So my father never had a girl. It's funny. I only have girls now. My father never had a girl. He had all boys. All 7 were boys. Only 2 of us survived, my brother and I. Those 5 were born to his first 2 wives. All of them passed away, mostly in infancy. It was much later in my life that I went to look at it. In fact, my father had twins in 1951. Both twins died. My father told me that he buried them with his own hands. So I went back to look at the history and realized that this must have been sickle cell disease. So Abiku, where we come from, is sickle cell disease primarily. Kills people in infancy. And so newborn screening is one way. And how much does it cost? I think on average, newborn screening in Nigeria, the one that can tell the condition in newborns, should run you between 10, 15, 20,000, somewhere in that general neighborhood is my predicted cost. So it's not impossible for people to pay for this. I mean, Nigerians walk around with phones that cost hundreds of thousands. The average Nigerian has a phone. Some of them have iPhones that is close to ₦1 million. So I don't want to hear that somebody cannot pay 20 or 25K for their baby to be screened for something.
Well, thank you so much, Prof. It's really very interesting. And well, I'm looking at the time, and it looks like on this particular edition, the time is just flying. We will be having about barely like 20 minutes more, and we need to go to the floor for interactions. So if you have questions, in fact, you must chook your mouth into this one from the way they say it in, those kind of balance. If you have more contributions, put it on Zoom, raise up your hand to indicate. And those who are at home listening on the terrestrial channel, in about 2-3 minutes, they can begin to call. But let me ask you again. You say, let you not hear that somebody cannot do screening tests. Well, what about in the paternity case? If I am not a rich man and I have reasons to want to, no, not yet, to reason to want, please hold on the call. The studio phone lines are buzzing, but just give us like 2-3 minutes. We will come back to you. So if I am not a rich man and I have some, cases of, I'm already having blood pressure and I want to confirm paternity, just how much do they even do these paternity tests? And does it mean if I don't have money, I cannot now determine or find out what is happening in my house? That's it. Oh, you didn't hear? Oh, have you unmuted? Have you muted Professor Imumori? Please put it on.
Unfortunately, paternity DNA test is not cheap. There are 3 reasons why it's not cheap.
What does a poor man do?
Number 1, the technology itself is an advanced technology. It's based on, nowadays it's based on sequencing, or it's based on microsatellite fragment analysis. So the technology by itself is expensive. So that's number 1. Number 2, most of them is not done in Nigeria. It's done by labs abroad, which means you have to pay foreign currency to that lab. And then number 3, the logistics around it is also difficult. And here's what I mean by the logistics around it. I live in Calabar or Yola, and I want to do paternity DNA test. I have to get a kit because you have to collect the sample from the child you are testing and the alleged father. You can't just use anything to collect it. You have to use something very specific to collect it, to make sure that you will get what the right sample in the right condition and all of that. So I told you that we do this, we offer this service, and it's expensive. In fact, right now, the average price in Nigeria, depending on the company, depending on the speed with which whether you want it express, whether you are willing to wait 3 or 4 weeks, whatever it is, the range I can tell you right now is somewhere around 300 to 350,000 naira. That's what it costs to do paternity DNA test in that general neighborhood, which is not a cheap test.
Man on minimum wage, 70,000. What now happens? He lives with his body.
Professor.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality.
Even the professor's salary cannot.
Professor will use DNA test. We not eat that month because that whole salary is gone for that month.
Okay, thank you. I think Mama wants to join the fray there. Can we do it in 1 minute so that we now take questions? The studio lines open very soon. Can you call the studio number before we come to Mama?
070-41-07949. Just immediately after Professor Adebambo.
Okay, Professor Adebambo, you want to? Do you still have something to say in 1 minute?
Before I didn't hear. I didn't hear what.
You still want to say something in that line of thought?
And like I said, it's very expensive because the reagents are very expensive. The kits, very expensive. The markers, very expensive. So
everything about it is expensive.
And you cannot do it in Nigeria unless our government will not take this one that this is a serious situation in Nigeria right now. I will not have,
what can government do specifically?
Every state has the laboratory. So why can't we have it in Nigeria? We have biotechnologies all over right now. They can do the testing. So it's very expensive, but if the government will put our money where our mouth is, setting up laboratories in every state, then it can be done easily for our people. And like I said about the genetic diseases, it's very common, very rampant now, and it costs a lot of money. See somebody that is handling sickle cell anemia patient, you know what it is, what they are passing through. It's really it's a serious situation for the parents and for the child. When they're in crisis, you can't bear the sight. So the earlier we begin to test, I think in some cases in the US, they now do prenatal tests before 7 weeks of pregnancy. They can do the prenatal test to know what exactly is happening with the child. In some instances, they can say, okay, this child is carrying this sort of diseases. Can you abort it? And the parent will say, no, I don't want to abort anything. So give me my child. Let it grow. So it depends on the parents. But this thing, because of the way it is operated, unless our government will come in and say every state must have a genetic lab, especially because of genetic diseases, because it's very rampant among our people. Like in my house, my husband is an O negative. It's a universal donor, and I'm in an A. So all my children are AOs. So I know that they are all AOs. So there's nothing anybody can do about that. So when there's a lab that can do the testing as early as possible, then couples will not go into that problem where they have to spend the whole of their lifetime on one child. If they happen to have 2 of them, at the end of the day, like I said, the commissioner for I think communication, when I was the president of Genetic Society, that I went to the ministry. He said, she is AS, the husband is AS. All the 4 children were SS, and they have all died. And they just don't die just like that. She must have spent and spent and spent on them before they pass away. Whereas the other commissioner said, I didn't know, we just married, and then, thank God, all my children are AA. So they are still alive. So if we have the laboratories for every state, and then you can test. It might be cheaper because the government can subsidize it. It might be cheaper for parents to do the testing early enough, even before they are married, so that they know the problem they are going into. They now tell you, if you have this, this is what will happen. If you have this, this is what will happen. Because geneticists will always tell you, if you do it this way, this is what will happen. So, and we do the calculation for population basis. So don't try it. If you try it, this is what will happen. Don't say I'm in love. Love does not feed
Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a call. Okay, first caller, you are on to Boiling Point Arena. Who do we have? Welcome. You have the floor. Go ahead. Okay, we have noted. It's all right. We have noted the question. Thank you, Mr. Martins. We have another call.
Yes, Mr. Martin from Victoria. Thank you very much for asking the question. There is no reason why I want to call it 070 folks.
Somebody just sent in an update. Said Lagos State built a world-class DNA center some time ago, but it was erased during the NSAS protest. Do we blame here? Well, we have another call. Can we indicate by raising of hands on Zoom? I see Professor Jendele's hand. Can you unmute Professor Jendele? Let's be quick, please. Technical, please. Professor Jendele. Unmute him, please. Let's have the hands raised up. Somebody is asking here, I think Shino Adefolaho from Abeokuta, that there should be a compulsory requirement before anyone should open a bank account or get admitted into schools. That is this issue of tests, screening tests and all of that. There are more questions coming. Have you been able to unmute Professor Jendele? Who else is on? Okay. Do you want to respond to before we have another call? Can you respond? Anyone should go.
So I think we should differentiate two things here, because I think we may be getting two things mixed up. Knowing your genotype for something like sickle cell disease, whether you're AS, AA, SS, before you get married or before you have children, that's possible now. That's easy to do. It's not, that technology is not difficult, and it's not even expensive. What is the challenge is if you already have a kid at birth, you don't know what the genotype of that child is at birth, because unless you test that child, unless you screen that child, you don't know whether the child is AS or AA or SS. And the test to find out in adults does not work in babies because of the presence of fetal hemoglobin. So when you are born, you have a high volume of fetal hemoglobin in the blood system, and that binds oxygen and minimizes the symptoms, at least in the first 1 to 2 years of life. So in other words, the baby will be normal, everything looks okay. But if you do the screening test we are talking of, you can tell on day 1 of birth, and then you can start taking steps. What is even better than that is not to have had that baby in the first place. And the way to do that is to know your own genotype and marry the right person. But that's a very difficult thing to do now. God told me I should marry Esther. I'm in love with John, or whatever it is. I know a couple. We were youth couples together. This couple were AS and AS. They both knew because they are both doctors. Okay, they are both medical doctors. They went ahead and got married. They ended up with 4 children. 2 of them were SS. I will let you imagine what's happened in that family since then. So, but at least they cannot say they didn't know in their own case. They went into it and said they believed that they will not have any SS child. But they ended up with 4 kids, and 2 of them were SS. So at that point, there's nothing you can do about people if they know and go ahead. But at least know your status. And based on that status, be educated and make intelligent decisions based on your own, whatever you think you can cope with. But anybody who knows a family with a sickle cell disease person does not want to put themselves in that situation. But doctors, they do know, because they see patients, they know this. But I think what happened was that they rolled the dice and they lost. They gambled and they lost.
Let's, I think Professor Jendele is already unmuted.
Okay,
but
he's unmuted.
before
Go
we
ahead,
take
sir.
him on, Dr. Shegun Isaiah from Abeokuta, he says,
thank you very
do
much.
you believe the experiment, just hold on a minute, do you believe the experiment being carried out by the traditionalists on this so-called DNA test, since the poor man cannot afford the cost of the services of the scientific one, can the scientific DNA test be perfect without human error, especially in this era of corruption? Well, we'll come over to that later. Let's have Professor Jendele.
Well, thank you very much. Great insights on this topic tonight. So I want to thank the 2 professors. However, I'm concerned about 2 things briefly. One is the culture of religion that kinds of gives people some false hope as to the ability of prayer to change scientific discoveries. And I think we need to speak to that, because that is one area where a lot of people still get misled into believing that, with prayers, everything is possible. We're not saying that there's no potency in prayer, but there are new discoveries in science that make us know that certain things are just definite. And I think we need to look at this part of it. And then when we talk about paternity fraud, we should also think of maternity fraud. I think both of them go side by side. And I think that's just my take for tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I remember somebody even told me that it's not fair on the ladies that even they want to do maternity tests so that it can fly. You want to quickly respond before do we have other hands?
Yeah, do you know the egg?
Okay. Mama, go ahead.
I said, you are the owner of the egg. It was fertilized by somebody else, because there's no way you can say, okay, I have a child without fertility from a man. So you cannot say maternity test, because you are the owner of your egg and you are incubating that egg because somebody has given you the semen to go along with it. You can't say you want maternity test except you are not convinced that, okay, maybe surrogacy can come in. And okay, I don't want to.
She said that because in cases where the babies were exchanged. If the baby was exchanged and you did paternity test on the baby, certainly it cannot produce good results. That's what a lot of them are thinking. But well, can
I
you
mean,
bring out the phone line again?
maternity test can be done, but the conditions under which you need a maternity test are very, very rare. You were pregnant for 9 months, you gave birth to a baby. We don't have any problem with who is the mother, right? We may have a problem with who is the father, but usually the mother is not in dispute.
Okay.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. So call it out there, you can call it on 0741 00794. What is the message board right here from the beginning? This is boiling point. I'm happy this topic of DSS and discussing this. I'm a victim of paternity test. A few years ago, and I only discovered when the boy was 30 years old. 2 tests were carried out in Canada and South Africa and Ghana. Respectively, our results are 99.9% negative. I want to appeal to Lagos State to rebuild the DNA center in Lagos to reduce the high cost, especially with high cost due to exchange rates. Other states can copy Lagos and build one in each state capital. Thank you. There's another message here coming from Martin from Ikodu saying just no compatibility between the father and the child, especially when it comes to making blood, determine the paternity of the child. For instance, when the father's blood is not compatible, does this indicate that the father is not the biological father of the child? The number to call is 2070-4100-794.
Let's quickly unmute Najim Jimo, Imam Najim Jimo. As we do that, is there a way government can mandate religious leaders to request for genotype tests results before joining couples? That's one. I'm coming over to you, Imam. Or better still, genotype test results should be one of the compulsory requirements. We mentioned that. Somebody is clarifying, with the death of the parents, is it possible to carry out a DNA test on any of the children? Let's stop there. Yes, let's bring up Imam Najim.
Yes, you can do. You can use siblings, uncles and aunts to do the test.
Just hold it, Prof. Just hold it. Okay, Najim Jimo.
Yeah, thank you very much for recognizing me, and thanks for organizing this very important topic. We've had religion mentioned 1 or 2 times, Moses, Bible, and stuff like that. So I thought to educate us on the Islamic perspective to this. In Islam, an adopted child must always be known as an adopted child. In Islam, an adopted child cannot bear the surname of the adoptive father. An adopted child, under the laws of Islam, must bear the surname of the biological father. And where the surname of the biological father is not known, or the origin of that child no one could trace, then they would look for a socially acceptable name and give to that child. But under the laws of Islam, an adopted child is not like a biological child, and that child must be made known to know that he or she is an adopted child. Also, for the purpose of inheritance, an adopted child cannot inherit in terms of material inheritance now. An adopted child cannot inherit to the same proportion that a biological child would inherit. So I thought that we should take advantage of this to let the audience know that in Islam, things work differently from the way they do in Christianity or under the English law. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I can see there's the calls have been buzzing. If it has come again, let's have it.
Let's see if the person can call back, because just before we have the person that's up now, the call came in, but in case you still want to call back, hopefully we'll be able to take your calls 07041 007949. But while we are with the calls, I think our time is way faster. But I'll hand over to the convener.
Well, yes, we will now roll up all the responses But I dare say that we still must necessarily revert back to Kabesi, the Olowo of Owu, for the closing thoughts. But let's see whether one after the other you can just wrap up your thoughts and trying to provide answers to some of the posers within a minute or so apiece. Who goes first? Professor Adebango.
Hello.
Thank you.
Am I okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, please go on. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Like I said, we could suggest that in Nigeria, as in other countries, the government himself can set up laboratories, testing laboratories, equipped with material and human resources, so that it can be cheaper for people to, especially for disease inheritance. And apart from the paternity, there are so many diseases that are inherited. So the laboratory can be used to test, so that an AS cannot say, because I love, God said, and then you go and marry and get into problem. No, 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 no,
Okay.
no. Once you have been told, you should know that you are heading for trouble. And so many other diseases like that are available. Unless for surrogacy, we cannot say, no, the maternal side is something else. But even surrogacy is the mother that donates the egg, and somebody else can donate the sperm anytime, anywhere. But it's the mother that donates the egg. So you cannot say, I want maternal inheritance to be determined for me. So, like I said, any other thing apart from diseases and marital problems, because in paternity that we are talking about is also from marital problems. So if government can set up laboratories like in other countries. When I was setting up the lab in Funab, my vice chancellor fought me so much, and I said, no way. I've gone to UK to train for 13 months on this, and I must set it up. There's nothing you can do about it, period and simple. It was after that the World Bank now gave us this central laboratory. So if we have to fight for it, for government to realize that we are having problem of inherited diseases, apart from paternity, child trafficking, and so on and so forth, then I think we could suggest that and go along with the federal government to do something in that area. Because it's a big problem when you have these genetical related diseases in your family. They cost more than you think. I can't afford the test. You can't afford the test, but by the time you go through years of pain with these children, you know that you can afford the test. God help
Thank
us.
you very much. Quickly, can you wrap up your thoughts, including the question asked, that's Professor Kidi, the question asked by Professor Jendele about the role of religion?
Well, I think my closing thought will be partly to support what Professor Adebambo said, at least for the basic screening. If government mandates that all babies born within its borders, each state can set up, just like you have in the US, set up a screening lab in each state, and babies can be screened. It's actually not expensive to do that kind of screening. It's that you have to set it up and you have to put the things in place to do it. And it is possible for government to do this. It's possible. For the religion part, I told you that we are currently working on partnering with hospitals and clinics in Lagos. We are starting from Lagos with plans to expand elsewhere, dealing with them to partner with them so that the babies born in those hospitals and clinics can be screened at birth. And one of the biggest things we hear from people, it's not my child's portion in Jesus' name. My child is not going to. We are talking a child that is potentially ASS. The parents are ASAS, and they are saying it's not their portion. It's not this and that. They invoke religion, but we know that eventually they're going to go through this difficulty. So I don't know whether we can address that in this forum. Our people are hyper-religious, and they bring that view and that sort of mentality to this situation, And this is why 150,000 sickle cell sufferers are born every year in Nigeria. So maybe our pastors can help by encouraging their members to do what they need to do. Maybe that's one way to do it.
Marriage.
Yes.
I don't even know how to close this session. Well, it's been very, very.
Maybe you need to do a part 2.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Kidi, Imumuring, and Professor Emeritus.
Thank you, Kabiesi. Thank you very much.
Let's go back to Kabiesi. Kabiesi has very wonderful perspective to round up everything. Thank you, Kabiesi. Over to you.
So I must express my deep appreciation to two guest speakers, Emeritus Professor Funlayo Adebambo. Thank you very much for your perspective. We truly appreciate you. Professor Ikedi Mumeran, I think I thoroughly enjoyed your submission, really. And I just want to emphasize on some of the things that Professor Ikedi spoke about, which about the prevalence of sickle cell, patients in Nigeria. And again, he spoke about, the so-called abuku that we used to have that we attribute to some spirit or, some other thing. And I think it also rolls into the issue of our spirituality or religiosity. So I think it's more of religiosity, really, where we invoke, supernatural, power, some of these things. And I think one of the key things we then need to do is the issue of awareness. That genetic screening is not just about trying to sort out paternity fraud issues or otherwise. It's more around, there's a lot of benefit we can get. As a matter of fact, it's far cheaper to do the screening upfront because the cost of not doing it is just too high. It's just too high, not just on the medical cost, but also on the pain that it brings to
families,
the children, and the society.
Yes.
Especially in a government that doesn't even have sufficient resources to fund healthcare, primary healthcare, as a matter of fact. And I really like that perspective, really. And I think it's one of the things we need to begin to, Dr. Arujolu, I mean, perhaps, it may be something we want to really explore a bit more, to really see how we can bring this to the fore and encourage the governments to look more into this. There's no reason why we cannot have mandatory screening, really. If to forestall all of these problems, beyond the issue of paternity, testing and all of that again. Again, thank you very much to all our participants who have, stayed true to and have been with us all through today, and those who have supported for the past 3 years as well. All our media partners, thank you very much for being part of this and helping us to make a success of this program for the past 3 years. And all those who have logged on online, those who have contributed their perspective to it, ask questions. We have a saying that, somebody who offers, if you say no to an offer, it's actually stronger than the person who offers. In Yoruba, it says, if you have prepared all of this and there are no participants, of course, what benefit will that be? So thank you very much to all of you. And I wish us all a very productive and pleasant week ahead. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Kabiesi, I cannot thank you enough. This is what we have been doing in the past 3 years. And it's not, it's really the Herculean, but very interesting. God is the rewarder. I want to say that by next month, maybe by November edition, let's go hard. This is a softer stuff. Maybe we'll go back to politics or go to economy, or we even try Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, whom we have asked. We asked him, can we do a part 2? I will remind him. He said, try your luck. Maybe we will have to just do that. But we thank God for keeping us all alive. The interest and the goal is that it shall be well with Nigeria, that governance will be deepened, that there will be accountability, the economy will be strong, the polity will be cleansed. Now we have a new INEC chairman. Well, so many things on the doing, but don't forget we have a physical edition that will be doing. We have not, let's keep that under media, but I know Kabisi has all of that under. Thank you so much. Professor Adebambo, Professor Ihide.